Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. In this new series called PREority, we would be discussing the important concepts for the upcoming prelims examination. Let's discuss the topic devaluation and depreciation of currency. When we say devaluation of a currency, it can happen in a fixed exchange rate system wherein the central bank of a country would consciously reduce the value of a currency. When it reduces the value of a currency, it is called devaluation. When it increases the value of a currency with respect to a foreign currency, it is called revaluation. For example, let's take the example of China. So, if the Chinese have fixed that, say $1 US dollar equals to around 6 Chinese yuans. So, when we say the Chinese currency is devalued, that means China wants to reduce this value of this yuan. So, when the value of yuan is reduced against the dollar, means that now instead of getting 6 yuan per 1 US dollar, now we would be getting say 7 or 8 yuan per US dollar. Now the Chinese have consciously reduced their value of their currency. What will happen? Now earlier for 1 US dollars, a person sitting in USA was getting 6 yuan. Now just by giving 1 US dollar, he is getting 7 or 8 yuans. So he can purchase more of Chinese goods at a cheaper rate, because for just $1 he is getting extra Chinese yuan. So this will lead to increase in the Chinese exports. At the same time, when the currency is devalued, the exports won't be competitive. When the currency is devalued, the exports will become competitive. Here the difference is devaluation or revaluation happens in a fixed exchange rate system, and depreciation of a foreign exchange currency happens in a floating exchange rate. Here the central bank consciously fixes the exchange rate. Here under the depreciation, the market forces of demand and supply would determine the exchange rate. For example, let's take the aspect of India. Say for 1 US dollars, currently we are getting 75 Indian rupees in the market. So now because the demand of the Indian rupees increases as against the dollar, when the foreign direct investors want to invest into India, they would want Indian rupees. So the demand for Indian rupees as against the dollar will increase. So at that point of time, what would happen? When the demand is more than the supply of the rupee as against the dollar, the value of the rupee appreciates. That is, it will go to say 73 or 74. Now by giving $1, currently they are getting 75 rupees. When the value of the rupee appreciate, that is, the value of the rupee increases as against the dollars, now we just have to give 73 rupees to get $1. So when the supply is more than the demand, when the market is flooded with the Indian rupees, or when the foreign direct investors want to go out of India, they would start selling the Indian shares and bonds, and they would start taking the they would start converting it into the US dollars. So when the FPI moves out of India, the demand for US dollars will increase and the supply of Indian rupees in the market will increase. So what would happen if supply is more than the demand? The price of something would fall, right? Similarly, the value of the currency would depreciate. That is, the value of the currency will fall. So then the Indian rupees will go to say 76 or 78. As we have discussed, under the devaluation or revaluation, it is the central bank which fixes. Under the depreciation or appreciation, it is the market forces of demand and supply which would determine. And there are various factors which would determine the appreciation or depreciation of a country. For example, the interest rate differences, the difference of interest rate between USA and India. Say if the interest rate in the Indian economy is more than the interest rates in the USA, now the investors would want to invest in India now because they are earning more here. So the demand for Indian rupees will increase. At that point of time, the value of Indian rupee appreciates. At the same time, if the interest rates in USA increases, the foreign portfolio investments will be taken out of India and will be going to USA. So they will start selling the Indian rupees. So if they start selling the Indian rupees, the market will be flooded. Supply of Indian rupees as against the dollar will increase. The demand for dollar is increasing because they are converting back the rupees to dollar. So the value of Indian rupee depreciates. That's the interest rate differential. Other aspect is political instability. If there is political instability, like for example, Sri Lanka, nobody wants to invest in a country where there is economic crisis happening. So the investors would want to take out the money. So when they want to take out the money and move away from the country, the value of that currency depreciates. And also the appreciation or depreciation will be based on the what would be the risk the investor would think the country would have. If the investor thinks the country is going to have higher risk because of various aspects, whether it can be political aspect, economic aspect, other aspects, then they would want to take out money from the country and they would want to move back to their country. At that time again the value depreciates. Currently in India we follow the managed floating rate system, wherein the RBI would generally allow the currency to freely appreciate or depreciate in the economy, but if they move too high or too less, RBI will step in and it would manage it. If there is too high inflation in a country, then it would impact the purchasing power parity. So earlier, if $1 can purchase so many rupees, now because the inflation is happening in the economy, now the person is sitting in USA, he can purchase less of the goods because of the higher prices, because of the higher inflation. At that point of time, the exports will reduce, and because the exports will reduce, the amount of foreign exchange we are earning would also get impacted. So the rupee value depreciates again, and the public deficits and debts also depreciate or appreciate the value of a rupee. A country is having a high public deficit and debt, that means the credit rating of the country would be low because there is a high risk to invest into the country. Take the example of Sri Lanka now. Because it is defaulting on the debt now, the credit rating of Sri Lanka will fall down. So people don't want to invest in such an economy. So they would start taking out the money from the Sri Lankan economy and start going back. At that point of time, the demand for US dollars would increase as against the Sri Lankan rupee, and the value of the Sri Lankan rupee would again depreciate. So what is the impact of currency depreciation? So the currency depreciation means fall in the value of a rupee as against the dollar. That means now the person sitting in USA can get more worth of Indian goods by paying the same amount because the value of the Indian currency has depreciated. That means for him imports become cheaper. For an Indian point of view, exports are becoming competitive. So when currency depreciation happens, exports become competitive, and for an Indian, imports become costly. Because now to import the same good, you have to pay more because your value of the currency has depreciated. So depreciation is good for the economy, for the exports, and bad for the imports. And when the exports are increasing because of depreciation, it would have indirect impact on the balance of payment, because whenever the exports are happening and imports are reducing, it would lead to favorable balance of payment because the trade deficit is reducing. The trade deficit is the gap between the amount of exports and imports. So when the exports are increasing and the imports are reducing, it would lead to reduction in the trade deficit. So the balance of payment position will also increase. So as you can see, in economy, everything is related. Inflation, interest rates, foreign exchange, monetary policy, fiscal policy. So changes in something will have a repercussion and changes in everything else. That's about this article. Thank you so much.